Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have to talk about how I was wrong about the new car market, and I'm not too proud to admit that. Like, when I'm wrong, and I will tell you guys. But before we get in the video, we have to talk about like what's going on with my hair. I don't know why it's so poofy today, but I guess that I decided to look like Conan or something like that. But anyways, before we get into this video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you can see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post these types of videos every single day. Let's get into it. Now, I first want to give some statistics to basically underlie my entire argument for why I was wrong about the new car market and why we're going to see a lot of changes in the coming months. Now, I first want to talk about median household income in the US over the course of an extended period of time. Now, the reason I'm using median income and not average income is because we have a bit of wealth inequality here in the US. Now, it's obviously not as bad as other countries, but we still have wealth inequality. And so if you take the average household income, it's actually skewed higher than what reality is because there's people that make so much money here in the US, and so they kind of pull that average high. Whereas if you look at the median, that's a little bit closer to reality when it comes to what the average person actually makes. So currently, the median household income here in the US, the average household income, is about $70,000 per year. But the average price of a brand new car is almost $50,000. And so that means that the average brand new car is almost 70% of the entire year's worth of household income for the average American family. Now, if we dive back 20 years, the average household income in the US, or the median rather, was just over $42,000 per year. And the average brand new car was around $21,000. So the average brand new car was about 50% of the average family's, yearly income. And then if we dive back really far, so back to 1950, the average or the median household income in the US was $3,300. And guess what? The average brand new car was about $1,500, so about 50%. And then if we dive back to 1920, the average household income was about $3,300. Yet again, the Great Depression and World War II obviously made it so we had some deflation in the US and everything. And so that's why wages didn't change all that much from 1920 to 1950. But the average brand new car back then was actually a little bit cheaper. It was under $1,000, so that's less than 50%. But there were there were a lot of cars in the market that were about $1,500, which would have equated to about 50% of the average American household's income. Now, obviously, those are just averages, and there are people that make more than that, less than that, and there are cars that are more expensive than that and less expensive than that. But here's the deal. If we just look at things historically, and you can take pretty much any time period and you'll find something similar to this, the average brand new car, price-wise, will be about 50% of the average American household's yearly income. And we obviously aren't in that range anymore. We're well above that range. We're like 20% above that range. And so we definitely are in a market where everything is overpriced. So like if you feel like new cars are all of a sudden way more expensive than they should be, then you're completely justified in thinking that because they are way more expensive than they should be. They are historically the least affordable compared to what they have ever been. And we all know why this is happening, right? We had the whole pandemic situation, which completely destroyed supply for a lot of manufacturers, and we still aren't up to the supply that we need to be at, right? This year, most manufacturers are guessing that the total US market is going to see about 13-ish million new cars, and that's down from the 17 million new cars the US market is typically expecting, which would, somewhat meet buyers' demands. And so what that means is, prices are going to go up. And that's exactly what we've seen over the last 2 years. But it is obviously unsustainable. And again, I was kind of a stalwart of saying that no, new car prices are probably not going to come down because, we have inflation, which has just pushed everything up and wages have increased. But the more that I researched into this, the more I found that, wages have definitely not kept up with inflation in most sectors. There are some sectors that have actually surpassed inflation in terms of their wage growth. But for the most part, the average person is a lot poorer today than they were prior to the pandemic because everything is more expensive and they're making more money, but not nearly enough to keep up with how expensive everything's gotten. So what this is now leading to within the new car market nationally is we're seeing inventories increase across the board with pretty much every single manufacturer. Some are exceptions, but if manufacturers aren't having their inventory increase, they're having their day supply increase. What this means is that if a manufacturer's inventory doesn't increase, but their day supply increases, then less people are simply buying their cars because day supply is based off of a previous month's sales numbers. And so we're basically just seeing demand destruction within the new car market. And diving a little bit deeper into this, it completely makes sense. And so this is something that we're pretty much just at the beginning of, because again, we had these huge price increases and most of them occurred over the course of the 2022 model year. And now we've reached, what I see as the peak where things can only come down from here because it's unsustainable. This is like what the used car market was like back in 2021, where I was like, yep, that is not sustainable. Used car prices are way too high. There's no way that used cars should be going for more than new cars. And now we're in a situation where, yes, the used car market still needs to decline, but the new car market needs to decline as well, because the prices that are currently being asked for on new cars are not sustainable whatsoever. Now, before I say this, I do want to mention that I can't predict the future and none of you watching this video can predict the future, but I firmly believe in mathematical trends and just overall market trends as well. And so if we have this mathematical trend where the average brand new car is about 50% of the average American household income, and we're at like 70% right now, we have to see at least a 20% drop in prices with new cars for the market to normalize, or we have to see wages increase by 20%. And we all know that with us going into a recession next year, most likely, we aren't going to see a 20% increase in wages. And so new car prices have to come down. And I don't know if it's going to take a few months, if it's going to take a year or a couple of years, but we have to get back to that normal level, because automakers are not going to be able to sell the volume of cars that they want to sell if they have their cars priced at the prices that they are currently at. The average person can no longer afford to buy a new car with the prices. So yeah, I'm going to say it again. The new car market is 20% overpriced. And until we see that 20% go away, we are going to see more and more demand destruction within the new car market, and automakers are going to be in a lot of pain, and new car dealers, frankly, are also going to be in a lot of pain. So does this mean that you should take a huge step back as a consumer and just not purchase a car for the next year or 2 years while the new car market, figures out some sort of normalization? And I think it depends. So if you're a cash buyer, then yeah, probably, because interest rates don't matter to you. And so if you wait, then that means that, you're most likely going to buy a car for cheaper in the future than you'll be able to get it today with everything that will most likely happen in the future. Now, if you're a business owner, well, it just depends. Do you need an end of the year tax write-off? If you do, then you might have to just bite the bullet and slightly overpay for a car. But I mean, it's sixes because, you're getting a bigger write-off if you pay more for a car. So it's like, who cares, right? If you're someone that's financing, this is where things get a little bit more complicated, because cars will probably be cheaper in the next few months and, over the course of the next year or maybe even 2 years. But interest rates might also be higher, and so you might not actually end up saving any money, because it's like, oh cool, this car's 10% cheaper, but now I'm paying 5% more in interest every single year, so I'm actually going to pay more over the course of the entire loan. So here's what I would do if you were a finance buyer, and I think that this would be a pretty safe, fair bet, is take the car that you're looking at buying and take today's interest rate and apply that to that car and see how much you'd pay over the course of the entire loan. Now, take that same car and take off 10% in terms of today's price, okay? Not the 20, I know I said 20% in this video, but let's just be fair, let's just play it safe, 10% off the value. And then take that interest rate, and then, let's say that the Fed every single meeting just keeps doing their, 50 basis points, 75 basis point, whatever it is. Just, maybe put a 2-3% higher interest rate on that and see how much that would be with that car at a, 10% discount on the price, and then see what the total amount financed would be. And if it's the same, then okay, you're sixes. You might as well buy a car now rather than waiting. Or if it ends up being more, then it's like, yeah, definitely buy a car now because you'll be paying more for a car in the future. If it's less, then yeah, it's probably worth waiting. That's why you always want to do all of the math when you are looking at financing a car. But like I've said over the course of this entire video series, I would just always be cautious and don't put yourself in a situation where you have to buy a car. Put yourself in a situation where you want to buy a car, but you can back away because you want to make sure that every single part of the deal makes sense. Now that's pretty much going to sum things up for today's video. Hopefully this helps you out if you are shopping for a car. And like I said earlier in the video, I'm never ashamed to admit when I'm wrong. And I'm kind of glad that I'm wrong on this one because, you know, when I made those videos talking about how I didn't see the new car market falling based on all of the research that I had made up to that point, it was kind of like at the end of every video, I was like, dang it. New cars need to be cheaper again. But now, like, at the end of this video, it's like, it sucks that I was wrong, but it's also great that I'm wrong because it's like, this is awesome. This will make it so that new cars are finally more affordable for the average Joe, back in line with where the market should be. But I'll see you guys.